So for today, I'm going to start out giving you just a brief introduction into my background and why I chose to join the team at PrecisionHawk. We're going to spend most of the time really talking about how we approach servicing enterprises. And I'm going to briefly touch on our platform and give you an update on that from a product and services perspective. We'll talk about a brief case study, and then there'll be plenty of time for your questions. So about myself, there's my mugshot. I started my career with John Deere in ag and turf product innovation. I moved to supply chain and manufacturing operations consulting with Deloitte to get a broader perspective of different industries and how they operated. I moved into a strategy consulting role with Deloitte, focusing on industrials, agribusinesses, and chemicals. And then I spent time at the World Economic Forum figuring out how can we get big companies, startups, regulatory providers, and academics kind of coming together to figure out how can we progress emerging technologies, what are the risks, how can we overcome those. So from that journey, I came to PrecisionHawk earlier this year. We have a lot of really interesting technology at PrecisionHawk, but what really drew me there was our approach to really delivering solutions that consist of really a set of integrated technologies and services in order to solve a problem. And so I didn't want to just work for a technology company that pushed. I wanted to come in and try to figure out how to use technology to solve solutions at the enterprise level, given my background. Okay. So everyone in this room has seen this type of picture. I'm sure most people have either used our software or someone else's software to generate an orthomosaic, maybe even run an analysis on top of that orthomosaic. And there's a lot of value in these images. There's a lot of general trend acknowledgement where you can see what's happening in a field, what's happening in a big piece of infrastructure. But the biggest question we have from our enterprise customers who have done this type of analysis for free, or someone has provided this type of analysis for them in the past, is that's a pretty picture. And you can probably know what's coming after the comma. It's but. That's a pretty picture, but what now? So at PrecisionHawk, we are really focused around not just delivering images and maps. We want to figure out what is the data that our customers need, how do they want that data organized, how do they want it delivered, and how does that data turn into information to help our customers make faster decisions, better decisions in their enterprise. All right, so answering that question, how does one go further? We see every time that we work with a big enterprise, we try to find the people in the organization that are really going to be critical to help the success of a drone program or aerial technology integration. And we call these people pioneers. So it might be one person, it might be a handful of people in the organization, it could be vice president of innovation, it could be director of operations, it could be a portfolio manager in construction, but we try to identify who the people are that are really going to be able to push the agenda, that are going to have the political prowess in order to get the organization to buy in, and then we build a solution around that person and around that enterprise. Now, that said, so the first thing we have to talk about is we have to figure out what's on management's mind. And the obvious question of that is a lot. And we have to really segment that down to when they're considering implementing a drone program or changing how they're currently operating with aerial technology information, we have to figure out, is it cost efficient? That's the number one thing that's going to move a business case. Right? If you get cost efficiency alone, there is a scaled business case that you can create to help integrate drone technology. The other one's risk management and safety. So I would look at this from the expansion of risk and the reduction of risk. So when considering a drone program, the expansion of risk is, okay, we have flying robots now in our organization, we have a lot more data, potentially our systems aren't set up, our legacy infrastructure is not set up to handle that type of data. There's potentially customer data now that's going to be moving around in the air, potentially, or different systems or through different partners or service providers. So how do we implement a successful program, and how do we also mitigate that risk? And then on the other side, on the risk reduction and safety improvement side, it's what can drones do, what can aerial technology do to help actually increase the safety of our employees, help increase the safety of our customers, help increase the referenceability of our data. So if we have an issue, if we have a construction project and we want to go back and reference day 35, that we have the ability to do that and talk to our customers and say, actually, it wasn't us, it was you, or it was us, we're sorry, here's a solution. The other big question is, we work with a lot of enterprises that have done some very small projects or proof of concepts, but they have no idea how to scale that, even in the same business unit, or in other regions, or just going to new applications, right? So that's a big question that's on their mind. And then the last thing, this is more, so the other ones were more internal, this one's more external, is how can we use this technology to maintain a position of industry leadership, to kind of move up the curve on industry leadership, and to have a real serious competitive advantage in our marketplace. So like I mentioned, we partner with enterprises to help build these capabilities. We work with the pioneer in the organization to figure out how to solve their problems, and we offer complete solutions. So there's 5 things that I'd like to walk this audience through of how we consider supporting the pioneer in the enterprise. So the first thing is going to be, let's choose the application. Let's understand how that application, if we're able to solve that problem, how does the workflow change? How do we integrate that new application into their existing workflow? How fast do we scale? How fast do we scale next year versus 5 years from now? What does that plan look like? And what are the risks and what are the benefits? And then I wanted to break this one out separately, is creating the business case, which I'll go into in more detail. And then how do we build the enterprise and support for scale? So is this hiring new people? Is this augmentation of skills? Is it investments in new technology infrastructure? What do we need to actually make this successful? So the first thing, choose the application. So here, we like to ask our customers first, what process or decision are you trying to supplement or completely replace? And so that might be an R&D decision in the field that helps you select, whether or not to go with this product versus this product faster. It might be a cost assessment where you're looking at a piece of infrastructure and you want to give a quote. But the first thing we ask is, what are you trying to make a decision on? What are the inputs that you're currently using? What are the manual inputs, like the manual human inputs in the field, on a roof, inside a property, that you're using to replace with aerial imagery or other technology? And then, okay, what is the objective? So are you trying to reduce costs? Are you trying to increase safety? Are you trying to just get better quality data because you're using a visual assessment that has made its way through a really smart PhD's brain onto a notepad that goes into an Excel spreadsheet, right? And so you'll be able to really increase the data quality. And then also for all those PhDs or all those really smart people making those different assessments, like how do we make sure that I have Tim in Idaho and then I have Sarah in Florida making the same assessment and letting me make a decision across different geographies and different timestamps. So those are some of the questions that obviously align to what's on management's mind as well. And then the last thing that we really want to emphasize is our customers want to do a lot. I mean, they see a lot of potential. The pioneers especially are really eager to implement drone technology, but let's figure out 1, 2, 3, less than a handful of use cases that are, let's say, low-hanging fruit that are going to be, that success is going to be centered around where we can build off that. The second thing for the pioneer to consider is how to integrate it into their workflow. And one of the best ways we approach this is, once we understand the application, the objective, and we have the short list of use cases, we work with our enterprise customers. We get them into a workshop. We let them outline their current process. And when I say their current process, it doesn't start with just data collection. I mean, it's before that. Like, how do they even select their people to be a part of this program? How do they train those people? How do they ensure that they're retaining those people? What are the risks and the type of people that they hire? Where do they want to operate? And we start with that part of the workflow and then work through data collection. How do we do quality control, quality checks, whether in the field or whether remotely? How do we actually process the data? Where does the data live? How fast is that data going to move? What kind of analytics do we do on that data? How do we ensure that we're getting the right data as an input to make sure that that analytic has all the inputs it needs to run efficiently, so we're not going through the value chain again? And then how do you generate reports? What type of reports do you want to generate? Where's the data going? Is it going into a system that's going to be hosted by a partner like PrecisionHawk? Is it going to be in an Amazon server? Is it going to be inside your current ERP system, CRM system? How does that work? What's your vision for full integration? And then how do you maintain that process? So we'll literally get with our customers, we'll outline that on a wall, and we'll look at that process flow. We'll get our team, and we'll go through and interject where we think drones can add value. And once we do that, we'll go back and revisit the steps in the process to say, okay, it's an augmentation using drones. We can do it the same way. We can plant the crops in the field if we're doing test plots in the same configuration that we've been doing for 10 years. Or we see value in maybe changing our dimensions, changing the way that we've done business to help make sure that the drones are going to pick up data the most efficiently as possible. So really important step, and we consider all the steps in the workflow and then all the different elements of service and products, hardware and software that kind of fit into that workflow. So once we've kind of gone through and we set a vision for what we're actually trying to do, what decisions we're trying to replace, what are our objectives, and how is that workflow going to work, then we start thinking about how do we actually scale this and make it happen, right? And what I have up on the screen, it's really an ag example, and actually it's true for a lot of industries, and I'm sure many people in the room use the exact same structure. We look at a proof of concept, we look at a really targeted pilot program, and then we look at a broader scaled implementation, right? And so this is really the ag example, and we tend to think of it as growing season 1, that's your proof of concept. Growing season 2, that's when you start the pilot, and then you think about growing season 3 for a broader value realization. So I'll start with planning. Before any of this happens, and a lot of this is part of the elements that I talked about before, is you need to do a current state assessment of what exactly the company does and what they're trying to replace. And I've already alluded to that, but this is when you do that. And then also, you've come up with this great workflow. You come up with a lot of solutions using aerial technology and new software. Is it really feasible, right? Is the scale that you're thinking about actually feasible? Can you fly that many acres, that many houses in the time period that you need to collect the data? Is the amount of data that you're going to get is just going to break you, right? Do you need to really consider how to use maybe another system or another tool or another drone or another sensor? And so that needs to be done up front. And then, this doesn't have to be some like major fluffy, slinkies in the room exercise with, developing a strategy, but we just want to think about, what do you want to look like 10 years from now? And how can drones help enable, like, where you want to be in the marketplace? What type of capabilities do you want? So that would be a zoom out look, and then we zoom in to say, all right, now in the next 6 months to a year, what are the things very tangible that we can do using drones or using other adjacent processes to be successful? And then the last thing, which I'll talk about in the next slide, is building a business case. All right, and for the proof of concept, once we understand what we're trying to do, now it's really the time to figure out what type of hardware and software do we need. So what type of drones do we need in the field? What type of sensors are we going to use in this stage? We do a more thorough readiness and compliance check. So once we understand the actual geographies where we're going to be flying, we make sure that we can actually fly there. From a regulatory standpoint, we make sure that we can fly there safely. We make sure we're reducing that bullet point number 2 of enterprise risk for management. And then this is the time, the proof of concept phase, where, especially in ag, you get this very distinct seasons. Especially in North America, you get 1 shot. Some other areas you might get 2 a year. But we want to make sure in the proof of concept phase that we've identified certain technical capabilities that we can augment the enterprise with drones. We want to make sure that we throw as many sensors, as many data points at the problem as we can, and we do as much custom analysis as we can up front in order to get a working product at the end of season 1. Because otherwise, you're into season 2, you're going into March, April, and you're trying to do the same things that you've accomplished in the proof of concept phase, and maybe you've developed some capabilities that can be piloted, but now you're behind. And so we emphasize with our enterprise clients, like, this is the time to invest in figuring out the solution that works best for you, because you're going to be kicking yourself come season 2 if you don't make those investments. And so in red here, really to sum this up, this is focus on technical capability development and really the quality of information that you're getting with drone technology. So moving towards the pilot, and this is when we've got very proven concepts. We've spent the off season or the preseason for season 2 really training our people, and the preseason for the targeted pilot, it's not like the NFL or the NBA. It's meaningful, right? It's very important. And so we're getting into this right now with our customers. We're ready to start targeting some pilots. Let's figure out all the different skills that we need so we can get the people in the field that are going to be flying the drones, that are going to be collecting the data, they're going to be doing the processing. They know what they're doing because they've got other jobs, right? When the growth season hits in ag, like, these guys, they're busy. And so the preseason before growing season 2, before our targeted pilot, is very important for training. And so emphasizing the process and figuring out how we can make sure that we're optimizing the workflow that we designed out, a year and a half ago, that's really the emphasis of the pilot. And then we start really thinking about the end of that workflow as well. We might have started thinking about that in the proof of concept phase, but a lot of the interactions in proof of concept are still very manual, right? Because the company doesn't want to invest a lot of money in transforming their technology integration if they don't have working products. Fine, makes sense. And so this is when we start to see, after proof of concept phase, we're looking at thinking about what investments do we need to make in their enterprise systems, or what partners do we need to make sure that we're achieving our dream of our workflow. And so to sum this up, targeted pilots really focus on a workflow integration, focusing on training in the preseason and during early, mid, late season checks, right? And how do we make sure that we have efficient processes? So after this second phase, you really have a working solution, and now it's up to figure out, where's that working solution repeatable? Where's it beneficial across your enterprise? Is it another business unit? Is it another region? Is it a subsidiary organization? Where does that work? So once we figure that out, then we really try to focus on, since we're managing a larger program, how do we really change our organization and what are the change management needs, and how do we structure governance around really almost a new division potentially in our company, but definitely a new massive capability. And then as part of that, how do we manage the program? So what kind of new people, what kind of pipeline of talent do we need in our program or in our enterprise to make sure that we can execute this for years to come? So to sum that up, this last phase is really the focus on being consistent and replicating all of the nice capabilities that we've proven and that we've tested in years 1 and 2, and really making sure that this is a streamlined, new capability across whatever regions or business units you decide to integrate. Okay, so that was how we defined the scaled approach, and you saw the bullet point in the planning phase for creating the business case. And one of the points I want to emphasize here, and back to my point on the investments that are required in the proof of concept phase from a technology perspective and R&D, custom algorithms, custom development, we really encourage and help our customers with developing a really robust business case that looks at year 3, year 5, year 10 before you have to make the investment in the proof of concept. Because we found that customers have done this in the past. They've waited for the good technology, they've waited for working solutions, and then they really wish that they would have made a bigger investment up front, and they didn't have the ability to sell management on a bigger proof of concept. And so since we rely so much on a really working good proof of concept, especially in ag with the limited seasons, we say build the business case up front, right? And present it to management. We can help you with that. We can help you figure out how to create the business case. So the first thing that we want to do when we do create the business case is clearly identify and measure the benefits of integrating these technologies. And so from my consulting world, I think about it at really two levers: is what are the primary operating margin benefits, and then what are the revenue growth benefits? So more internal versus more external. And these are pretty typical for what we see in ag, right? One of the benefits is area coverage. So a lot of our customers, they didn't have the time, they didn't have the resources to actually evaluate a large amount of land, a large amount of acreage, large amount of assets, using their current workforce and processes. So this really augments that, and in a lot of cases, it lets them see all the area that they want to see, whether that be with satellite imagery or drones or some combination of the two. The second is referenceability and documentation. And I think I mentioned this before. You've got the smart person in the field making an assessment on something. It's going into a spreadsheet. It's just a number. If they want to go back and dissect that and deconstruct what actually went into that, there's now ways to do that with different layers of information that we get, different imagery, different bands of information, that we can go back and say, okay, this is actually the real driver. We might not have seen it then, but we see it now, and now we have a way to document that. The other one is, I mentioned data consistency. So it's the person at location 1 versus location 2, time 1 versus time 2, year 1 versus year 2, being consistent where you get whatever you fly. Anytime you run an analysis on the same orthomosaic, you get the same output, right? Which may change using conventional manual methods. Labor efficiency, this one's pretty obvious. And like I said, this is one of the foundations of a business case, right? And if you can show positive cash on labor efficiency alone, there's your business case, right? The rest is just gravy. And the last thing is actually accurate information. So I mentioned consistency every time you run it, but you obviously want to make sure that whatever analysis you're trying to do is more accurate than previous methods. So if you're measuring a roof, you're trying to get dimensions on a roof, making sure that you hit the market's accuracy requirements. So those are operating margin benefits. And then I'll touch on just a couple that we typically see in ag, or actually emerging benefits that we're seeing in ag. So on the revenue side, improved customer awareness of value. And a lot of the customers that we're working with are using drones for their internal R&D or their internal innovation teams, and they're getting really good, product A versus product B outputs, right? So my corn plant emerges faster than competitor's corn plant, or my soy is less resistant to disease than competitor's soy. Those images are super powerful in the marketplace. So you work with your marketing team to figure out how to get that type of information in front of buyers. That's going to increase your market share, it's going to increase revenues, all kinds of revenue benefits. And the second one is giving the technologies that you developed in-house to your customers and letting them leverage that technology to make their own decisions, and then bring you in to help them mitigate issues, keeping them customer loyal, or keeping them product loyal or service loyal or company loyal. And there's ways that we can tie value to that when we're generating a business case. And like I said, this doesn't have to wait. You can do this exercise up front before POC. So once you understand the benefits, the costs are inherently built into those benefits. We know what the program's going to cost. Then we need to explicitly link these benefits to whatever your enterprise or our customers' enterprise performance measures are. And that changes depending on who you are. But I go back to my shareholder value map. I look at the 4 areas. 2 of them are up top. Revenue growth, where you can look at increasing volume through market share. You can increase price, operating margin issues, SG&A, cost of goods sold, or even income taxes would fit there. Asset efficiency, so looking at improving the efficiency of plants, property, personal equipment, or any type of other assets. Inventory would be included in there. And then, in general, these are more intangibles on the far right side here, are expectations. And so these are a little bit more like intangible ways the market perceives you as a company, as an innovator, or any other type of more abstract way. Now, you might not be able to put a number on that last one, but it sure helps when it's in the business case. All right. The last area I'll talk about is building and supporting for scale. So we love to be a good partner to the enterprise. We also understand that as an enterprise, you you need to pick other partners besides PrecisionHawk or besides drone manufacturers, besides software companies, to make sure you're successful. A lot of it's going to be built around data management, around IT infrastructure, and making sure they can handle all the new data sets that are coming in. It might be partnering with a provider of another type of information. And so, for example, farm management systems in the field now, drone information is just one of many inputs. So the right partner might be able to help aggregate those inputs in a meaningful way to help your customers get more value out of your products, to help you understand your customers better, to help you develop R&D initiatives faster. So there's a whole range of partners that need to be really thought out up front. And the second piece is you can't operate a drone program in a silo. So, like I mentioned, if you're a VP of Innovation or Director of Operations, how do you make sure that the rest of your organization understands what the heck you are doing with drones, what the value is, and what the plan is long term? And so, one of the things that we've done and helped our clients with is we've actually done internal marketing campaigns where we'll go do a video of our customer in the field using drone technology. We'll show them in the lab, and we'll show them, the outputs with a short video, and we'll circulate that around through the organization. Like, a short video is meaningful. People are super busy. We found that a simple click in a minute, people can start to get it, right? And then you can start to have the conversation about how do we work with your department, or how do we, what other support do we might need and buy-in to help make sure that this is successful for years to come. And then that segues right into the last point. So don't operate in a silo, involve other departments. We've seen a lot of customers that have developed really great solutions only to be handcuffed by legal when it came time for pilot, right? Proof of concept was fine because it was at a scale where legal wasn't involved. Involve legal in the planning phase. Same with IT. Should be obvious. But we have customers that say, okay, we've got all these data solutions. It's 700 megabytes per day. It's going to go into this system. Thank you. We need it for next season. Involve them up front. And the other one, this should be mostly wins for risk management, but we need to understand the risk with having this type of technology in our company up front. Okay, so my key takeaways here, they directly align to a lot of the areas I spoke before, but really understand the challenges. Optimism's great, but let's use a little bit of a reality check here and understand what's really feasible and what's the timeline for feasibility. Design the workflow, get your hands dirty, get all the right departments in the room, and when I talk about the workflow too, get risk, get IT, get legal in that exercise, and really understand what's going to change and be realistic about it. Scale strategically and at the right pace. So that alludes to my tiered program implementation that I spoke about, whether you decide to do POC, pilot, or implementation. There's really not going to be that last phase that's going to start in our industry right now, but it's really figuring out the right scope, the right scale, being realistic, being strategic about implementation. And then building value in operations. And this is the business case piece. And so once you do that upfront analysis, it's continually going back and revisiting what you said was valuable 2 years ago, and let's measure against that, and let's track that. Let's not wait until we've gone through first 3 years, and now we're scrambling to articulate to the board what the value is in this program. We should have clear documented value success steps along the way that we just basically thud factor, dump on management's desk, and we say, we have to do this. And the last one is just make sure you support this and resource for success. I mean, I've been on a lot of projects where, it's tough to invest in the right people, and you're definitely understaffed, but just make sure that the staffing levels and the support is there, and then all the right parts of the organization are involved, right? And they feel part of the success too. So I will really briefly just go through what we do at PrecisionHawk, just our platform from a product and services standpoint, just so you're familiar. Many of you in the room probably already are aware of us, but the first thing I'll talk about is obviously drones. We do manufacture a fixed wing, but most of the work that we do is on multi-rotor drones, M100, the 200 series, and the 600 series platforms. And what we really care about here is we don't care what you fly. We just want to make sure it does the job that you want. It's reliable. It stays in the sky. We know how to service it. And we know the product that you're working with, so we can help you answer questions. Second thing is sensors. All the drone hardware that we talked about before, they can be equipped with the sensors listed here. So obviously visual sensors. We have standard multispectral sensors where you get your NIR bands, especially in ag, that's critical. We also use thermal imaging, and we are quickly building LiDAR capabilities and hyperspectral imagery. And I will say this page is really important during the proof of concept. To do your ground truthing, to really throw as many sensors at the problem as you can, using the platforms on the previous slide in order to really get working solutions at the end of your proof of concept. From a software perspective, we make a flight software called Precision Flight, and that's an autonomous flight software which you can download off iOS or Android. It's for free, so you can play around with that anytime you want. But we do use that with our enterprise customers, and if we need to custom tweak any part of that software, so we can certainly do that as well. The second piece of software we use is an in-field quality control, quality check called Precision Viewer. And really the purpose of that is you don't want to collect data in the field, you don't want to go home, you don't want to sit, have a coffee or tuck your kids into bed and be uploading data and then realize that, oh crap, I didn't get what I wanted. There's holes in my ortho mosaic. I didn't use the right sensor. I left the lens cap on. So that's really, it sounds simple, but it's really critical, and we're continually to build capabilities around that piece of software in the field so we can make better decisions to say, we got good data or we didn't get good data. Fly again. The last piece is really the core of what we do at PrecisionHawk is our Precision Mapper tool. It's where we have off-the-shelf analytics, and we also do some custom analysis tools, but we give outputs in 2D, we have 3D outputs. The outputs that we have, and you've seen just standard geotiff orthos, geotiff vegetative indices, if you just want a simple report, if you want a KML file to do analyses on top of that, or a shape file, which is incredibly helpful. This is the first layer that we can provide using our software, and a lot of our customers don't want to see any of this. They just want that tabularized in a CSV by plot, by house, by region, so they can make decisions on. But these are pretty standard outputs. Next is analytics. This is a collection of what PrecisionHawk has already on our marketplace. The algorithms you see here, they cover ag, they cover insurance, there's some energy applications as well, and construction, but we try to create algorithms that are open architecture that you can build layer upon layer upon layer. Some of these in combination might be meaningful to you, right? And so we're able to layer these on top of you to give you a custom analytic if you want for your enterprise. But I'll say anything that you see here, anything that you see in Precision Mapper is just a starting point for what we actually do with the enterprise. We also have tracking capabilities. So one of the risk levers that people want to understand, especially in an insurance company or construction, is where are my people in the field? Where are they operating? How are they flying? Are they flying? Are they doing their job? And so we actually have a tool called Lattice where we can help track where your drone is. We can help give you, go or no-go flight decisions that are integrated into our flight software, and that really are starting to help you track kind of your fleet and manage your assets in the air and reduce risk. And I think the last piece here, and this is how PrecisionHawk has really grown over the last year, is in order to enable solutions for the enterprise, we had to build physical infrastructure in-house to be able to really give the type of service on demand that our customer needs. So if you look at the top left, we have a flight services team that's very good at flying advanced sensors, really difficult geographies. They've been all over the world. We have them all over the world. And if we need a very specific application for our clients, we can go in and help fly. A lot of times in the proof of concept phase, we're doing the flying. And our customers don't want to invest in the people yet until they see the technology and they know that we know how to fly, so we can provide that service for them. When they're ready to fly, we can train them. Train them on Part 107, train them on data upload, data QA/QC, any type of special sensor training. Our flight services team can do that. And obviously data collection is part of that. The data services side of the house, I don't know the exact number, but I think we have close to 30 GIS scientists, mostly based in Raleigh, North Carolina, where our headquarters are. And that's where we really develop custom solutions for the enterprise, and we help the integration of those solutions into their existing systems. So a big part of this too is we're building a team about IT integration, so we can understand those outputs and how we can streamline that whole data collection to report delivery process. Very important we found for enterprise customers is they don't technically know how to manage a drone program. So especially in proof of concept and pilot phase, we find it very valuable. We have an account management team. They're really great, and they help make sure that everything that we've listed in our Gantt charts and our plans, they're getting done, right? So they help coordinate projects. They help work on specific accounts individually, and they also help field customer support issues via phone, email, or whatever method our clients want. And the last piece here is our consulting organization. And what we try to do is bring in experts from across a lot of industries, ag, insurance, construction, energy, some government specialists, to really help the integration piece and understanding what does a good workflow look like, what's a good process look like. We've seen a lot of ugly stuff and pain in organizations on the consulting team, so we can really help with that whole workflow design process and building a phased program, and really help make integration successful and being really strategic about what we do. So I think some of our new consultants and our consulting organization, they really help architect a lot of the things that I've already talked about that we deliver to our customers. Let's do a quick case study here. The case study I'm going to talk about, it's an ag case study, and it's from a seeds and agrochemical company. And the reason I wanted to talk about it is because the specific client we've been working with for the last 2.5 years to integrate a drone program. And 2.5 years ago, the problem that the company had is these guys were monitoring and trying to assess different traits and plant growths in the field. It was incredibly inefficient. We convinced them of that. It was inaccurate, and it was really labor intensive as well. So a lot of human labor involved. One of their outputs was they got a bunch of inconsistent data. And so when they were trying to make decisions about, they were a seeds company, so if they were trying to make decisions about plot A versus plot B, plot B's traits are bad, let's advance plot A, let's invest more money and more resources in plot A. They had a really tough time convincing management to do that. And also the decisions took forever because they didn't have good data. So they were arguing amongst scientists in one location versus scientists amongst other locations, which the data consistency piece came in. PrecisionHawk, we jumped in, we developed a business case, we talked about how to implement a phased approach to the problem. We developed a proof of concept. We selected with them, we walked through a workflow, we selected about 10 different traits that they would be interested in transforming the way they made decisions about those traits using drones instead of human manual labor processes. We threw a bunch of sensors, we threw a bunch of hardware, a bunch of really smart scientists at the problem. At the end of the season, we developed a handful of really good algorithms that were custom to that specific client that they could use on demand. And that was the big objective at the end of the proof of concept. Between bullet point 2 and 3, we trained their whole organization on how to fly themselves. So in point 2, PrecisionHawk flew. For the pilot program for North America, the client pilots flew. And so what these people were, they were trial managers that still had an existing job to make decisions about go or no go in a plot, how to manage a plot through a growing season, but now also had the responsibility of flying drones and collecting data. And so this was really the test of how do we integrate those two job responsibilities, how do we augment that current job to make sure that they're successful and they have a successful pilot program. And so right now we're actually planning, we're taking trips in different global regions to figure out how do we scale this based off the success in North America, how do we scale this globally? How do we increase the 30% in North America to 2/3 or eventually 100%? And how do we do 50% in maybe LATAM or some other region? And just to give you some visuals, these were some of the outputs. Just one of the few algorithms that we developed was an infield stand count. You know, there's a lot of plant counting algorithms out there, but they really wanted custom solutions that were segmented by plot, that were extremely accurate, that had they were able to autonomously fly consistently and get really good data. And then the outputs of that data, they honestly never looked at this stuff. This was kind of the management entertainment value presentation pictures. They just wanted the values within each plot. If something went haywire or something was hokey, they would be able to go back and reference the imagery. But really the output was this many plants in this plot, this many plants in this plot. We've got 50 of these plots, we got 50 of these plots, we have statistical accuracy, let's make it a go or no go decision. So that's one of the, just an example of the capability that PrecisionHawk developed. Impact, so always measure the value. Efficiency, we went from 1 hour for one pilot to survey all the land, right? Versus several hours of different people. It could have been college students in their summertime. It could have been people from the organization, literally walking the field, making assessments, counting plants. And so we did everything that they were doing in 1 hour. They were only getting, to point 3 here, they were only getting 20% of coverage, right, with that type of labor, and the UAVs allowed them to see every one of the plots. And then accuracy and consistency. So obviously you can just imagine the manual methods they were using before. They weren't as accurate as they needed to make decisions for a big seasoned agrochemical company, right? So drones really gave them that accuracy and consistency that they desired. And then data management, right? So they're really excited about the fact now that they have, they can go through their breeding research period over 7 years. They can reference the same plot, the same product over different growing seasons and different conditions using whoever was a trial manager at that time. But they have really A to B to C to D to E comparisons of data now. And they're building different tools that are really exciting in their organization for people to be able to access that really, really efficiently. And so we're really proud of the work we've been doing with this client. I think 2018 is going to be a big year for them and us too. We're going to be really busy and all over the world. But I just wanted to provide a brief case study based on everything that I walked through about how we approach the enterprise and kind of what our capabilities are. And so hopefully that was informative and helpful. And thanks for the opportunity. And I'll take any questions that you guys have. And I know there's some other colleagues I've seen walking in from PrecisionHawk, so we can have this. We can have an open discussion here about anything you guys want to know.